Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome back to another diesel review, this time a class that I've never reviewed before. So last year Helgen announced that they would be producing a brand new model of the Class 45, or the Peak as they're also known. And a little while after, I think, Bachmann also announced that the Class 45 would be returning to their range as regional exclusives. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to try and get one of the existing ones and just find out what they're like. And luckily enough, very shortly after I decided I would do that, I found one at a train fair, and here it is. Now, as you can tell, this one is in a slightly older box and it's not brand new, it is second hand. And because I bought it from a train fair, I did have to get this out and service it and make sure that it was okay. And it really is. It's actually quite a modern loco despite the box. Now, as you can see, I paid a very reasonable £69 for this. That's very, very cheap indeed. In fact, the latest Bachmann 45, which they're about to release, is £144.95, although that is a Class 45/0, and I believe the chassis has been updated to have lighting on it and such. I don't think this model has lighting on it. However, I was really happy to get this for £69, and if I remember correctly, I might have even bartered with the guy to get it a little bit cheaper. So I could have paid as little as 60 quid, which is crazy stuff. Either way, if you're interested in checking out the latest Bachmann release, I will include an affiliate link down in the description. But for the time being, let's get this one out and find out what it's like. Didn't take a close look at it when I took it out to service it, so this will be quite interesting for me as well. So here we go, let's find out. So yes, there you have it then, the slightly older Bachmann packaging, and I'm pretty sure Bachmann haven't used boxes like this in a good 10 years or so, so it's fair to say that this model is at least a decade old, I would guess. Yeah, detail that counts. It's a really odd catchphrase, that, isn't it? I mean, the suggestion being that some detail doesn't count, but Bachmann certainly does. Yeah, what on earth does that even mean? I don't know. Anyway, let me show you the end of the box. This is 32-676. It's a Class 45 diesel, 45114 BR Blue with white roof. What is so special about the white roof in particular? I'm not too sure. White doesn't say with white roof, yellow ends, sprung buffers and crew. I've no idea. But yeah, maybe it was unusual to have a white roof, or perhaps Bachmann didn't do many with a white roof. Either way, it's got a white roof, don't forget that. There's not a lot to see on the box anyway, it's a little bit tatty actually, which again supports my theory of this being a little bit on the old side. But let's get this out. I've only had this out once. I bought it probably a year ago, more or less, and I had it out really briefly to service it and make sure it worked okay, which it did. I didn't really take a close look at any of the detailing or anything, so yeah, it would be interesting to do that. So here we have a card inside that I found. It's a little bit sun faded, isn't it, which is probably why it wasn't in the front of the box. On the back though, we do have a history of the Class 45, so that's pretty good. If you wanted to know the history, there it is, feel free to read that. And I think we may have some instructions on the inside, which is pretty handy. Yes, I'll pull this out so that you can see. So yeah, no split chassis going on here whatsoever. You can see this does have a nice can motor inside with dual flywheels, although yes, as I said earlier, I can't see any wiring there for the lighting. It could have just been omitted from the diagram, but if I remember correctly, this doesn't have lights. It also has a fan, as you can see, but I don't think the fan spins or anything like that, but it is at least separately fitted, which is good to see. So there we go. Yeah, we'll talk more about the mechanism in a little while, but for the time being, let's try and lift this out. I don't think there's a detail bag with this. It was second hand, unfortunately, so I can't say for sure whether it had one initially, but mine doesn't now. But let's get this out. Are there holes in the back? Yes, there are some holes, so it makes getting this out a little easier. Alright, so yeah, this thing is actually gigantic. I could only see half of it when it was in the box. So yeah, this thing is absolutely gigantic and really heavy as well. It's obviously got a die-cast chassis on this, or at least some sort of heavy metal weight. Probably the chassis block is made of metal though, yeah. And it looks really quite good, doesn't it? I do love this. The roof, by the way, isn't white, as the box suggested. It's definitely grey, unless my eyes have failed me. So well done there, Bachmann. But yeah, it looks great, doesn't it? In fact, if you showed me this loco without its box and said it's 10 years old, I would probably struggle to believe you, actually, because there are one or two really nice little details on this that I can see already. So first of all, here's a little history on the Class 45. Man, I'm really liking this. This is actually beautiful. I mean, I'm not a massive diesel fan, but I'm really enjoying this one already. Right, yeah, little history, and then we'll take a look at the close-up details, and I can't wait to do that. Anyway, 127 Class 45s were built by British Railways between 1960 and 1962 at Crewe and Derby Works. Complete with their impressive 2,500 horsepower engines, they soon became one of the most commonly and heavily used locomotives on British Railways, and they remained so until the early 1980s. The class had an impressive top speed of 90 miles an hour and attractive effort well in excess of the steam locomotives that went before them, even yielding a 40% improvement over the 9F, one of the largest, of course, British steam locomotives. From 1982 onwards, though, following the introduction of more refined designs, I guess, the class were relegated to lighter duties, but they could still be seen until the late 1980s, I think it was. By 1989, though, withdrawal was complete, though 11 examples have been preserved, which I think is pretty healthy for a diesel of this age and size. Not bad at all. Alright, so there it is up close for you then, the Bachmann Class 45 Peak. And I love this. I think this is absolutely awesome. It's fast becoming my favourite diesel. In fact, if you say to me British diesel, I think an image of this is basically what comes into my mind. It's absolutely huge, it's blue with yellow ends, and it's got that absolute classic diesel shape to it, hasn't it? It's just wonderful. And I do stand by what I said a minute ago about this being really good for its age. Like I say, this has got to be 10 years old, more or less, probably more, possibly less. And yet the level of detail I would consider still to be quite impressive today. Now, I've had a bit of a close look at it since I said that the first time, and yes, there are one or two features that are a little bit dated about this, but generally speaking, for the money, for £69, or for 60 as I think I paid, this is astonishing, and in fact I would have been happy to have paid over 100 for this and still say this is good for the money. So let's talk about then some of the features that are a little bit on the dated side, and by the way, none of these are major, but I do need to point them out as a reviewer, which is apparently what I am. So let's take a look. If you look at the join here between the blue body and the white / clearly grey roof, you can see it's a little bit blurry, isn't it, that line? It's not ruler sharp as you'd expect it to be these days on models. However, that's not to say the paintwork is sloppy in any way. A lot of the sort of grey / white, whatever you're going to call it, trim here is pretty well done. And all of the running numbers, as you can see in the signage below the number, and the BR logos on the sides of the cabs are all done absolutely perfectly. So the paintwork isn't sloppy at all, but yeah, in some areas you can just see that it's not quite up to modern standards. Also, obviously, these days we're quite used to seeing separately fitted etched grills and that sort of thing. That's not what we've got with this model. They clearly are just a part of the moulding, as you can see. They're not terribly convincing, but they're not dreadfully unconvincing either. So yeah, one or two features. I mean, the bogies as well, if we take a look at these. A bit on the chunky side, the steps aren't as fine as we might expect them to be these days, but they're all relatively minor gripes. So now let's get positive, shall we? I mean, look at this thing. Isn't it gigantic? So this is, let's get this straight, it's a 1Co1, right, which is obviously rather large. Had trouble actually getting this in the shot, it's so big. And its size really is one thing that I really do like about it. Some of the details then, if we take a look on the cab doors, you can see we do have the painted door handles, which is pretty good, as well as these separately fitted metal handrails either side of the door, which do look good, don't they? It's a nice touch of realism there. A really great detail is the glazed headcode box. As you can see here, there is actually a translucent plastic piece inside there. It's not just been left empty, which is just great attention to detail, isn't it? It does look as though we have lights on this. I'm pretty sure we don't, although obviously I'm going to see when I get this thing running. But even if there are no lights there, the places where they should be are at least quite convincing. And as you can see, we have the separately fitted lamp brackets all over the front as well, which is not bad at all for the age, is it? Another thing I really like is the buffer beams. As you can see, we have sprung buffers. Look at that. That's really, really good. And also one thing I do like is the coupling, the way that the NEM couplings are fitted. Now, if I take them out, you can see what I mean. So as you can see, those are integrated beautifully into the actual buffer beam, which is really cool and clever. One thing that isn't so cool and clever is that they're too high up, and so you have to use non-standard NEM couplings in them, which have an adapter on them, which make them lower down than they should be. That's a bit annoying. It sort of defeats the object of having NEM couplings if they're the wrong height. But yeah, it's both stupid and clever at the same time, which is something I do quite admire. The top of the model is really quite impressive. I have mentioned the fan, where there is an actual physical fan underneath this grille. You can see that the grille itself hasn't been fitted all that well. There's a big gap on this side, but once again, I'm sure that wouldn't be the case with a modern version, although I can't say that for sure. And no, the fan does not spin, I've verified that. But the rest of the roof detail is really, really good. There are some separately fitted pieces, I'm fairly sure, or at least they look it. And generally speaking, the effect of the roof there is very convincing. I do like that very much. The cabs are also impressive. As you can see, we have fully glazed windows, which is great. On the front end, we do have a driver fitted, so this model is complete with crew. That's not something you see very often these days. Absolutely fantastic. A feature which I assume is unintentional, but a feature nonetheless, are the windscreen wipers. These are not just painted onto the windscreens, these are genuinely separately fitted parts, and they even move. This is the unintentional bit, look. I don't imagine Bachmann intended these to move, and if they'd sort of mechanised them, made them actually move, that would have been astonishing. But you can actually reposition the windscreen wipers. So as you can see, a decent looking model. Yes, some of the paintwork's a little bit dodgy. No, the grills are not etched. But overall, none of that stuff detracts from the statement that this model makes as it sits there looking amazing. So yeah, I must give this a full approval, to be honest with you. I'm not going to be giving it 5 stars because that would be silly on detail. But generally speaking, I think it does what it needs to. And if you can pick one of these up second hand for less than 100 quid, I very highly doubt you'll be disappointed. So let's get this down onto the track. We'll get it tested and talk a little bit about mechanism and performance. And this model does pretty well on that too. Okay, so there is the Class 45 down onto the track, and I've got to say, the more I'm handling this and looking at it and using it, the more I am thoroughly enjoying it. It's absolutely wonderful. Let's talk about the mechanism then, and it must be said that like all Bachmann diesels, the mechanism is incredibly strong. That's not necessarily true with lots of Bachmann steamers, but I must say that Bachmann diesels usually have the best mechanism of all the different manufacturers. They're leaps and bounds ahead of Helgen, in my opinion, where the mechanism's concerned. Great quality, and they're serviceable as well. They can be dismantled and serviced without too much faff, which is, to me, really, really important. So let's talk about some of this then. We'll start positive. Weight, really, really good. The whole loco weighs 590 grams, which is really quite a lot. We have a centrally mounted motor in the middle of the loco, which is an incredibly powerful one. It's absolutely huge. It has twin flywheels, one on the front and the back, as we saw on the instructions, which really makes controlling this thing a dream, particularly on DC. So I don't know if you're a bit rough on the controller, it's going to speed up and slow down nice and smoothly. Or if the electricity's interrupted, if it cuts out on a point or something like that, it should be able to carry itself over. So we'll do that. We'll speed it up in a second and then cut it off and see if it glides along. It also has proper bearings on the wheel set, so we've got really nice smooth running there. Really good mechanism. There are a few downsides to it though. The first one relates to the flywheels. As I said, they're massive and there are 2 of them. The problem is with that, obviously that's quite a lot of work for the motor at the slow speeds to have to turn those flywheels as well as the mechanism, and as a result the slow crawl is really not very good. We're going to see that in just a second. The other thing is that only half of the wheels are driving wheels. I think it's the rear 2 on both sides. The third one is a dummy, and obviously the pony is also a dummy, as they're supposed to be. So yeah, that could be a problem. It could be a problem for pulling power, and also only half of the wheels pick up. It's only the driving wheels that pick up, which again is a little bit of a shame. The pulling power though isn't terribly bad. It's 0.52 newtons, which is enough for this to manage about 30 coaches on straight and level track. However, obviously it would be a bit more, it would be a bit better if it had those extra driving wheels. Either way, let's try this then. Let's set it to forwards and let's do a bit of a slow crawl and, well, see if it can actually do one. If I remember correctly, it didn't do a good one when I first serviced it. Let's see if it's any better now. And it has been running, by the way. I did run this in. Oh, okay. So as you can see, it sort of cut in, and then as soon as it sort of got moving, it sped up dramatically. So I'm going to try and get this so that you can see my hand on the controller as well. Right, so set this forwards again. I'm going to just slowly turn it up a little bit at a time, and as soon as it starts to move, I'll stop. By the way, it doesn't have any lights. I forgot to mention that, but no lights, which is a detail problem, really, isn't it? Right, keep turning it up. There we are. As you can see, it starts, and literally this speed here is about the slowest it can manage. Oh, trifle better in reverse, although it's not smooth. No, it's stopped now. Turn it up a little bit more. There we are, I've let go. Still struggling. I can feel it vibrating. There we are, and then it kicks off, as you can see. So yeah, the slow speed is more or less non-existent, but I will just show you those flywheels in action. So we'll send it off this way, I'll get it up to about half speed, and then when it gets into shot, I will flick the switch on the controller and turn it off. You ready? Turning off now. Look at that, that glides to a beautiful stop. So yeah, the flywheels definitely eat into the slow speed. I think it will be their fault. However, they do, as I say, make controlling this thing a real joy. So that's pretty cool. Let me show you what coaches I have set up for her then. Now these are old crusty coaches, but they do sort of match, so I thought they'd be nice. Only 5 of them, of course, so that shouldn't be a challenge for this loco. Okay, off we go. Let's couple to them and see how it looks. Can't wait to get this going around the layout. Let's see if I can cut this off at the right time and get a nice coupling. No, I couldn't. Right, did the coupling engage first time? This is difficult because, oh, yes it did. As I say, these coaches are old and they don't have the same couplings, but that did work, so that's very good. All right, let's get it going. So today's theme is going to be blue diesels, which is a theme that I very much enjoy. So we have a classic BR blue diesel here. This is the Helgen Class 52. Now, as I say, mechanically, this is far inferior, in my opinion, than, well, most of Bachmann's diesels. However, this one does pull a lot better. In fact, this has about 0.9 newtons of pulling force, which is about a 40% increase over the Bachmann, despite them having similar pulling powers, I believe, in real life, the Class 52 and the Class 45. So yeah, that is food for thought, but the pulling power is not a problem with the Bachmann 45. It's just not quite as high as I might have expected. But either way, there goes the 52. And then on the inside line, I have a Class 37, not in BR blue, but in Regional Railways blue. Possibly it's not even blue, it might be considered purple, but either way, I thought some people would like to see that, so there that goes. Anyway, enjoy the running session, see which other blue diesels you can spot, and see if you can tell which one is the odd one out. Right, let's catch up with that beautiful Class 45. There goes the Helgen 52, just waiting here for the 45, there it is. And I love this thing, I really do. Yes, it doesn't have lights, which sucks. No, all of the wheels don't pick up and drive, which is a bit of a shame. But just look at that. It's difficult to fault this, isn't it? Yeah, they're just great looking diesels, aren't they? In real life and definitely in model form. And another thing is, of course, the sound. I don't know if that's coming across, but it makes this beautiful rumble as it runs along, which, even though it's not DCC sound or anything like it, just really brings the loco to life, quite surprisingly so. And there goes that Regional Railways 37, that's a V-Trains one. Very, very powerful, those. Definitely the most powerful diesel I've ever had. But of course it has traction tyres, so that's cheating a bit. Obviously, no traction tyres on the Bachmann 45, that's for sure. It's a great sort of shade of blue, isn't it, on this? It's not electric blue or anything like that. It's quite a subtle shade, which I'm really enjoying, actually. It's got a bit of class to it, hasn't it? Anyway, here are some of my ratings then for the very impressive Bachmann Class 45. Now, I've already said that the level of detail has impressed me for a loco of this age. However, I still have to review it as though we're in 2020, which of course we are. And so no lights, slightly dodgy paintwork, and just plastic grills are relatively dated features these days. But there are some pretty decent features as well, such as the sprung buffers, the crew inside the cabs, and the separately fitted fan. So I thought it was too harsh to give it as low as just 3 stars, but 4 I thought was a bit much. So I've settled for 3.5 star there. Same on performance, 3.5 star. Yes, it's not too bad, it's very nice and smooth. It's not a quiet runner, but I think it's noisy in a good way. It sounds great when it runs along. But it can't crawl, which I do think is a detraction. So if you like diesels that can really crawl, this one might not be for you. Generally speaking though, it's a decent puller. The pulling power, as you can see, is pretty good, 31 coaches. I measured the pulling force at 0.52 newtons, but the Dapol 121 bubble car had the same pulling force as that, and of course that's just a single car DMU. The Helgen Class 52, which is a similar sized diesel, had 0.94 newtons of pulling force, which is considerably more than this, so yeah, it's okay, it's not dreadfully powerful, but it is easily capable of hauling a decent rake, which is good. Mechanism then, as I've already said, is very, very strong. I've given it a 4-star. Yes, it's got a decent motor, dual flywheels, proper bearings, nice metal wheels. It's very good indeed. However, only 8 of 16 wheels pick up and only 8 of 16 wheels are driven, which is a little bit of a shame. If, well, let's say all 6 driving wheels were driven on each bogie, that would have made a big difference, probably to the pulling power as well. But yep, the mechanism is very good. Quality has to be a 5-star. This is very sturdily built. It's got a nice heavy metal chassis block, which is great. Very nicely built. The detail is well applied. It's good. Yeah, I have to give it a 5-star. Very good quality. The value is a tricky one. As I say, I paid about 60 quid for this. The RRP for the latest version is £144.95, although that has lights and a few extra features. So I'm giving it 4-star. Yeah, I would expect to pay about 100 for this. Any more than 100, I would say, is not really worth it. But certainly 100, yeah, that's absolutely fine. Overall then, that is 7.77 out of 10. Into the logbook it goes. There we go, second just below the Bachmann E1 and above the Hornby Ruston. And actually, for a loco that is 10 plus years old, that is not too bad at all. Very impressed with that. So let me know what you think, folks. Is it a big deal that this thing has no lights? Do you care or do you not care? I would say I do care, but not enough that I would, send it back or anything like that. The other thing I ought to mention, it is DCC ready. The box didn't say so, I don't even know if the instructions said so, but there is a socket inside, despite how old the box is. So that's pretty good, I think, as well. Pretty modern in that regard too. Just look how beautiful and smooth it is. No lurching whatsoever, it's just beautifully smooth, 100%. So, I mean, how important is the crawl? Are they shunters? Obviously not. I don't know, I prefer locos to be able to crawl. There's nothing to say a loco can't do a good high speed if it's a decent crawler. Yeah, but it's not the end of the world. Well folks, I really did enjoy that. I think I've genuinely found a diesel that I'm thoroughly enthusiastic about. Absolutely loved that one. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Is it too dated for you? Is it decent? What do you reckon? Overall for me, yeah, it's a winner. It's not the most modern in the world, but it doesn't matter. It's quality, and that's what I like. For now though, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed that, even though it was a diesel review, but I know a lot of you guys like the diesels, and when they're like this, yes, so do I. But it'll be something steam next time, I reckon. Either way, thank you for watching, thank you for your time, thank you for your company. Have an amazing week, and I will see you very soon, folks. Alright, take care.